Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Fundamentalists podcast. My name is Elliott Morgan, and I am here once again with Peter Rollins. I hope you missed us. We're back. Don't worry about it. Feel comfortable. Sit back. Enjoy. Take a load off a little bit. If you're in the car listening to our voices, I hope
just
you
close your eyes.
Close
relax.
your eyes. Breathe in deeply. Mm-hmm. Just let all the troubles, the cares, the noises go away. Don't pay attention to the honking horn or the screaming babies. Just keep on plowing through. Do your thing. Please don't do that unless you really want to. And if you're at home watching this on video, thank you so much. This will be going up this week. I will be in Orlando and Tampa next week, Pete.
Fantastic.
And I'm not afraid to say so. On July... Yeah, on July 14th, I'll be at the Tampa Improv, and July 15th, I'll be at the Orlando Improv, and then I head off to Nashville, Tennessee, not to do a show, but to spend time with my brother and my dad, and we are going to go to Monster Jam.
Yeah, you were telling me about this,
yeah, I'm pretty
which
stoked.
Is big trucks, basically.
Big trucks that go vroom, and they run over things.
Right.
Are there
excited.
Rules?
Are there rules?
I have no idea.
Is it a game, or is it a game?
I have no clue.
A sport?
I think it's more like stunts.
Stunts. Okay.
Like big, yeah. So I'm pretty stoked about it.
It's kind of like wrestling.
Yes.
Maybe kind of like choreography, kind of like an interesting choreography.
Yeah, something could go wrong, but they're all very well trained and hopefully well protected, and it's just a big, loud arena of people shouting at things, and that's all I want these days.
Yeah,
I just want some kind of chaos. So I'm super stoked about that, but we'll be in Florida. If you guys would like to come say hi, please do. Now, Pete, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Okay.
What's been going on in my life? What's been going on?
I don't know.
Well, one of the highlights was, which you're going to be talking about, is I think is the segue to today's conversation.
Yes.
As I was hanging out with you and Grace the other day.
For the first time, just coming over.
Just coming over, just hanging out, which might be a shock to people who are listening to this.
We're all recluses.
Yeah, we were all recluses. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun.
It was 4th of July. There were fireworks going off. There was really beautiful fireworks, to be honest. I think you and Grace didn't get as much out of it as I did.
We were. I didn't see very much at all. Just a few.
Yeah, it was nice. I'm always like, oh, there they are. And then both y'all were like,
yeah,
they're fireworks. But you had a good time.
I had a great time. Fantastic.
What did we do?
Well, interesting. We did a few things. One of them was tarot cards. You and Grace enjoy tarot.
Do enjoy it, yeah.
So there was a little bit of that, and that is going to be the theme of today. We're going to look at tarot. We're going to look at it potentially from some, you're going to talk a little bit about what you think. I'll talk a little bit about what I think. And
great. I love it.
I want to talk about truth. That's the big thing. I think there's really interesting things is how do we confront the truth and all that. So tarot is it.
I love it.
Because it was, I thought,
it's relevant.
Yeah.
Relevant to our interests. I enjoy tarot very much. I did not used to enjoy tarot. I didn't used to enjoy any sort of new agey things, but I got satanic things. But I got into it because my partner was into it, and I thought when we first started dating, hey, she's very cute, and so therefore her interests became my interests. And also, I remember the first time we did a tarot reading. It was at our NoHo apartment, and as she was doing it, I was like, I need you to know on the satanic note, I was like, I need you to know that this stuff creeps me out. Like I was raised that this is all bad. This is all the bad stuff. And as she was shuffling the cards, a card fell out. Always a fun thing in tarot. And you flipped it over, and it was the devil card. And I had just said, I was raised to think this is devil stuff. Now that was very funny to me, and I was like, okay, it was fun, and it had there was a sense of humor in the event. And since then I was always like, okay, this is great. Now since then, of course, I'm not very into tarot. However, I know enough about it. And for those of you who don't know, essentially there is a deck of cards that have sort of mythological images on them, sort of archetypal or like gothic or whatever. You can get any kind of theme you want. There's all different suits or whatever. There's the wands and the chalices. There's the royal. It's sort of like a deck of cards. And then you sort of pass them out, and you might have, one column is your past, one column is your present, one column is your future. And then the reader and the recipient will go through and talk about what each might or might not mean. If a card is reversed, that can mean something, or it may not. If a card falls out, it may mean something, or it may not. And so it's a fun little way to sort of express what's going on with you psychologically. I believe the term is apperception test. Am I right with that? It's sort of people look at a painting, you can look at something and you can give a backstory to it that reveals what's going on with you unconsciously because you are using story and all this stuff to sort of construct what's happening in the background and verbalize what's happening in the background. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing sometimes is it's just great. It's just wonderful, and then you're like, oh, this one nailed it. And then you go, oh, this one didn't nail it. But what I like about it, and one of my favorite parts on Sunday was at one point, Grace was, I was like, Grace, read your scars. It'll be fun. And she said something about like, hey, whatever, it's silly. And you were like, why do you keep saying that it's silly? And then that ended up, I think, sticking in her head a little bit and I think her answer, which I was not expecting to be her answer, was because this stuff is silly and it has sort of a sense of humor about it. And I remember being like, okay, that's interesting that she would say that. And then when we talked later, the next day, she was like, yeah, it's interesting because some people haven't grown up in a big religious environment in any way. And so when I think certain people are seeking guidance or they're at a difficult part of their lives and they don't have any kind of viable religion, or maybe they're part of a religion but they don't get anything out of it, tarot, these types of things can become a way of just sort of like putting a distance between all the chaos happening in your brain and allowing you to give space for it. And I think that's very nice. And it was interesting to hear her because I was like, oh yeah, she wasn't raised in sort of a deeply religious environment, so she doesn't have a lot of that baggage. So I was like, okay, so it would make sense that it could be kind of silly because there's a lightheartedness to it because she hasn't experienced the other side of this stuff where people can be it can become very oppressive and very constricting.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Yeah, I also, she had maybe a certain perception of me as a skeptic. And so it was interesting to me that she was expressing a skeptical part of herself through thinking that potentially I would be skeptical. That was something we also talked about, and that was very interesting.
She was like, well, he's like a philosopher, and he's like really smart. And I don't want him to like think it's stupid and like that kind of thing. I was like, it's fine, it's all fun, everything's good.
All fun, very good. Well, the thing I was going to talk about this week, which connects with tarot, so I'll start with that, is that last week I ended my kind of reflections by telling a story about a friend of mine, which I'll just recap very briefly. It was a story, and I told him about this actually last week. I said, oh, by the way, I used an example from your past, didn't mention who you were or anything, but just checking it's okay. And he's like, yeah. But he was also said, well, you never told me that you read it in this way. So that was interesting. We chatted about it.
Wait, so what was it?
It was my friend he got very into 9/11 truther stuff. Yes. So at that time, and it was really weird because he wasn't even American. He's from the UK, but he got really into it. And what was happening in his life is the love and work, and Freud says, by the way, the cure helps us love and work well. So basically we're trying to love and work well, but love and work, love and labor in his life were collapsing. And they were collapsing because of this kind of massive invisible force of global capitalism and the greed of certain people, whatever. And it was so traumatizing that his life was falling apart. He at the same time found what you could call what they call in the art world was a found object, which is where, I don't know if you know Marcel Duchamp's urinal.
No, that doesn't even sound, I know urinals.
Oh yeah, well, what he did is he took one, and and this very famous piece of art, he put it into a gallery. And by doing that, the urinal is still a urinal, but now it's sublimated and it's something else. It's a work of art, while at the same time he has done nothing to it except for sign a fake name on it. And so in the same way, my friend was having this trauma in his life. And so he found basically a found object, a narrative that was out in the world at the time. And it was the Twin Towers, because the Twin Towers of his life were collapsing. And so now he was obsessed with the Twin Towers collapsing and this dark organization behind it, controlling it, et cetera, et cetera.
The two tower, one being
love,
romantic,
and work.
Yeah.
And so what happened is, for me, and I didn't tell him at the time.
Yeah, when both those in our lives go down at the same time, that's tough.
It's tough. It's very, very tough.
That's worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario. And this was happening in a very traumatic way, forces beyond his control. Like it was a global recession, 2008 recession, so it was a nightmare. And I didn't tell him at the time, but it helped me understand what was going on, and it helped me be a better friend to him, because I understood the way he talked about 9/11 helped me understand how he felt, et cetera, et cetera. And the reason why I didn't tell him it directly is because we can't handle the truth. That's the movie that says that, isn't it, in the Jack Nicholson? But we can't handle the truth.
Few Good Men.
Few Good Men. But the truth is we can't handle the truth. That's a very existential notion that too much truth will kill us. There's an old religious saying, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free.
Yeah, I think that line was actually changed in improv in the scene.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it was a slightly different line, and I think he said it wrong, and they kept that.
Because it was very well said. Fun. It's a very powerful line.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful because it's so true.
I could be wrong there, but I believe I read that on some Instagram movie fact page. But anyway,
yeah very good. Well, it does hit very hard. And it's because that religious notion is like, actually, confronting our truth frees us, but a direct confrontation with the truth kills us. It's just too much. So what we often do is we find another site with which to tell the truth. So for my friend, the other site, the other scene was the 9/11 truther scene, where he could speak the truth without being overcome by the truth. Now, the reason why I'm sharing that...
Oops. Wow. I don't think in years of doing this podcast I've ever left my phone not on silent. Apologies.
Oh, I didn't hear it.
Okay. Well, never happened. Leave it in, Cam.
Leave it in.
Good part.
So yeah, with tarot, I think something similar is going on. That what we do is we find another site with ready-mades, these objects, these images, to kind of like be able to confront the truth that we repress. But the more interesting thing about tarot is you're open to receiving the truth back. So the reader, if the reader's good and the cards are productive and the person reading them is creative, you can basically, you facilitate a conversation with yourself.
Yep.
Basically, the role of the reader is to, if they're not like a true believer, is to facilitate a curiosity and a conversation with the other's unconscious.
Yeah, tarot cards are just really fun. Point to where on the doll they touched you. Like, I can't handle this truth. So yeah, the ace of, 3 of wands.
Yes.
That is, that's it. That's the...
Yeah.
I like that. Well, what was did you, I'm assuming now, obviously, you have been completely transformed by, and now live in a state of euphoria regarding your experience with tarot. Unfortunately, at that point in the nighttime, I don't remember much about it.
See, I remember all the tarot readings, but I remember yours and Grace's. I don't know if I remember mine.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you remember about mine? Oh, I remember. We don't have to go into that.
Yeah. See, well, this is the thing, is that the great thing about tarot is if you do it right, like any of this stuff, it tells you so much truth that is disconcerting and you can't share.
I'd rather not.
Yeah, no, of course not. Of course not, because it's too true.
It was so fun. Yeah, that's what I like. Yeah, and it can be so on point sometimes, and then other times it can be like, this is nothing. But when it works. And yeah, I think it works for the reason you're saying. It becomes a way for people to access what's going on in a way that it doesn't traumatize them, essentially.
Yes. Because
it confirms, which is nice. It can be confirmation bias too, or that's what I thought. Okay, great. It can be encouraging as well, which is the same idea. It's like we're all just looking for an outside thing to go, see, this is what it is.
Yeah, and so when it's encouraging, so when it's encouraging, you're definitely encountering a part of yourself. But the more interesting bit is whenever you're disturbed, I think that's where you're encountering a truth. And it can be disturbed in a good way. It can be disturbed but basically, if you do a good reading, the person feels that their inner soul is being revealed to themselves.
Yeah, I like how we timed that adjustment together.
That's mimetic. You know that people copy each other whenever they're talking.
Yeah. It's funny to see when it happens, but it's synced up. Freud said that dreams are the royal road to the unconscious. Jung said complexes are the royal road to the unconscious, because when a complex is activated, when you become not yourself over something because you're lashing out, that points to a truth, an unconscious truth that's happening. So if I would imagine if you're getting a reading from a tarot person, you're getting which, by the way, I will say I do love the spectacle of it. I love the light a candle and there's fireworks going off and it's all fun and cozy and nice. There's cheese. A very important part of tarot is always have cheese available. Yeah. Maybe that's why my stomach's been messed up. But anyway, there's cheese. And then I think, it allows you to just go, puts you in a slightly different state mentally, and then opens up that part of your brain a little bit, and then you start feeling uncomfortable with one of the cards, and then that is most likely something's been activated, something's going and that has something to say 99% of the time, maybe 100% of the time, and it's very fun.
And there was a bit of that on Sunday night. There was a bit of, I think, the cards speaking,
Well, the part we're not talking about, Pete, is we kicked you out shortly after you read the cards because I said, actually, too creepy, you need to get out of here. And then you planted your own chick tracks all over my home, which I still don't know how or when you did that, and I'm still finding them. Found one in my backpack, and I didn't even clean my office before you came over. I probably should have organized that a little bit. The rug was all disjointed, and that was embarrassing, so I was already off kilter. And this is going horribly, and then I come out and there's tracks with the rapture all over it. And I was like, okay. And I reread it, by the way, and it's very good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Very good. We were talking about, why we need rituals, like you're saying, lighting a candle and the tarot, because that's the other thing is if the truth sets us free, but we can't have an unmediated confrontation with the truth because it's just too disturbing, then you have to find a mediated form of encountering the truth, so mediation through something, and so whether it's tarot, whether it's other religious rituals or art or analysis, something that allows you to confront the truth from the back, not seeing the face of truth and dying, but seeing the truth from the back, and therefore being able to be able to kind of start to integrate it. So my friend, interestingly, when I talked to him about the 9/11 thing, and we talked about that point in his life.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of going like, so what he had to gradually do was he had to gradually learn a way to bring that light, to speak up out himself. So at first it was put out onto the truther stuff, and then gradually over the course of a year, he was able to make sense of it in his own life. And then, to be honest, then he just dissipated, the conspiracy thing just went away, because regardless of this truth or falsity, what it was providing for him was a way of putting his own trauma onto another scene.
Yeah.
To be able to see it.
That reminded me of, I don't know, maybe it was some Campbell thing, or the idea of it's like what he went through in a year is the equivalent of going from believing in Greek gods that are dictating your life, that are, you're completely powerless, to the gods then basically becoming unconscious, still existing within your brain and wreaking havoc. And you just sort of learn over, with him it was a year, but for us it was a long time, where all of them just became, all that stuff on the outside became more and more psychological.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's not what he said, but it was the general idea of it. But yeah, it's like he looked to the outside world, which is a really great, as I say this, I'm staring directly at like the tallest building, and one of the tallest buildings in Los Angeles. But the idea of going, okay, it's there, it's out there, I understand that thing, but I'm separate from it, and then going, let me take this internal and start using it that way, can become real productive, it seems like.
Yeah.
Was he mad at you?
He was mad. No, because it was years later, thankfully. Maybe at the time, you have to be careful about this stuff, as you said, because people can be angry. If you speak too much truth to somebody, so it's quite...
I can tell you that, yeah. Boy, I can tell you.
So you got to switch that off. But years later, it's fine. So we were chatting about having a laugh about it.
Good. Happy ending.
Happy ending, yeah. And he's doing really well. Now he's helping me with crypto. He's got into the crypto world, and he's helped me understand that world. And
have you said maybe you should, don't look at crypto so much and start thinking about what crypto you have on the inside? What's going on mentally? That is your crypto.
That is, I mean, that's the nature of projection. There's probably something in that. Yeah, absolutely. And it was Feuerbach. He was like one of the, and this is why I like Feuerbach a lot. But he was one of the first philosophers to explicitly, systematically define projection, where he talked about how, in order for humanity to come to know itself, it first has to put itself out somewhere in the world. Mm-hmm. Then it sees that out externally, and then eventually it has to pull it back in. So his notion of the kind of like religious God is the projection of humanity writ large, and he thought it was necessary because in order to come to know yourself, you have to first see yourself outside yourself. Mm-hmm. And now this is a central notion to infant development, that we come to know ourselves in a mirror. We first have to see ourselves externally. And that's why even to this day, well, as adults, people look at celebrities and they idolize celebrities and they see, they externalize parts of themselves and others and all of that. But yeah, it was Feuerbach who really kicked off that notion.
I follow certain accounts on Instagram that are like more Hollywood and mainstream, and I'll sometimes click on the comments to see what people are saying. And some of the familiarity with which people speak about celebrities is some of the weirdest. Like, they have real opinions on like what celebrities should and shouldn't do, and think they know them. And it's like, oh man, these people really are projecting onto celebrity life. Like, what's going on? Like,
I had a thing.
There's no way the celebrity gives a crap what you are saying.
Yeah, I had a thing a few weeks ago. It's really funny, but it's like somebody was so sure about what I was thinking and how I was responding to something, and it was so far from the truth. But I was seeing this, and I was like, my goodness, you're having a conversation. You think you're having a conversation with me, but you're having a conversation with a part of yourself, because it's just like, it was just so weirdly foreign. And yeah, that's the thing. So whenever you know what a celebrity thinks, whatever, 9 times out of 10, what you can do is you can go, oh, is that a conversation I'm having with myself? Like, yeah.
Am I alone in the room right now?
Yeah.
Is the call coming from inside the house? Dude, I gotta tell you. So, I watched this documentary last night, and I didn't know how rough it was going to be. It was a dark, traumatic documentary, but I'm going to talk about it. It's called "Tell Me Who I Am." Have you heard about this?
No.
It's like from 2019 or something. This is a story about 2 identical twins, and it picks up very beginning with a motorcycle accident that happens to one of the twins. His helmet comes off, and he hits his head. And he loses, as a result, he goes into a coma. When he comes out, cannot remember anything. Mm-hmm. But he has an identical twin. This is what I was thinking about, because you mentioned the mirror phase. Mm-hmm. He's going, that looks like me. And he goes, that's all I know. I know that I can trust this person because that is me. And I don't know that this person is my mother, and I don't know that this person is my father, and I don't know this is my bed or this is my home. And he had no recollection. So over the course, he's 18. Over the course of several years, he learns to sort of either fake that he knows people, or he kind of mixes the two, kind of knows them a little bit from where he's at now, but then really doesn't. He gets reintegrated into society, and he does, he comes off pretty well functioning, I guess. And he makes a joke in it at one point that he actually re-met his girlfriend, and then so the joke is that he lost his virginity twice to the same girl because he couldn't remember any of it. And his brother, his identical brother, was always the person he would go to get information so that he could understand what was happening in his own history. And his older brother would show him old photos and say, and then he would watch a lot of TV. He'd watch a lot of sitcoms. He'd go, okay, families. He'd see a commercial for soup, and they'd be like, okay, this is what happens with a family. They all sit around the table every night, and they laugh, and they joke around, and they ask how each other's day was, and they go on vacations. And he go, oh yeah, we went on some vacations. He starts showing them vacations. He starts showing them these photographs of them at the beach, and then he starts constructing memories around these photos. You would love this. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
That's as happy as the story gets.
Right.
It turns out that the identical brother lied. Wow.
Well, I didn't either. I didn't turn it off. My goodness.
And it's happening at such interesting times.
Yeah.
But anyway, his identical brother has been lying to him about pretty much everything. And he starts to realize that his brother's been lying to him as his father is dying. His father, who was never really interested in them, didn't really talk, acted like he didn't know them, ignored them a lot, sat at the table, did whatever. Apparently they came from a very aristocratic background. As his father is dying, he's got both of his sons in front of him and says, I just want you to forgive me. The son who's suffered the trauma of falling off the motorcycle says, of course, yes, I forgive you. And then the other son says, no, and I will never forgive you. And they walk out. And he's like, why on earth would you say this to this guy? Why would you do that? It's an old man. Just get over it. Come to find out, it gets darker and darker and darker. And you can put the pieces together. And then it actually was that the father was not a perpetrator of the event. It was the mother that was the perpetrator. And all the photos from vacations, the parents weren't there. They'd been sent off with other families. And it was horrible. And the third act of the documentary is them discussing kind of the moral preferences, where one of them is going, yeah, I lied to him. I would hope somebody lied to me. I got to free him from that trauma. I got to, and by doing that, I got to not have that trauma anymore. I got to not feel like my parents were these horrible abusers. And so, yeah, I lied, and I'm sorry I lied. He was like, I betrayed him. And his brother was like, no, you're the only person I could have trusted. You're the only person. Why wouldn't you tell me all the truth? And he saw it as a gift. He was like, it's a gift for me not to tell you how horrible things actually were and perverse and terrible. And he was like that. Some people will say, the truth will set you free, and the truth is always whatever, and the truth is blah, blah, blah. And he goes, I was not ready myself. If I told him how it actually was, I would have had to have confronted it, and I wasn't ready to do that. And then at the end, they sort of sit down for the first time, and it's really incredible, but it was like a holy shit.
Mm. See, that's interesting because, right, so trauma is precisely what can't be spoken. So the weird thing is, what would happen if you told someone, if this person has a complete reset, kind of in there because of brain damage, and then you tell them some traumatic things that happened in the past, would that traumatize them?
My argument is I think it would traumatize. It would have re-traumatized the person saying it. The brother.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
And I think he was aware of the fact that it really you could see him interestingly kind of try to rationalize it from the perspective of his brother. But as I was watching, I was like, well, they're identical twins, so I bet that's ingrained in them. I bet if you're, I don't know, I'm not an identical twin, but I imagine if you're an identical twin, you can confuse sometimes what's going on with the other with yourself. And I think he kept going back and forth on well, I did this to protect him, which was really coded for him saying I was protecting myself from having to confront what was going on. And if he's the only guy who was ever going to tell this guy, I mean, it's just a moral and ethical conundrum from any way you look at it, and a truly horrible situation.
Yeah, yes. I need to see it because there's lots of, I've got lots of questions, but I think I need to watch it and then I can fill in the gaps.
Yeah. Point being, there was something to the idea of not being able to confront the truth, having just watched the mirror phase, identical twin, trauma, memory loss.
All of that's in it.
Because I see what you're saying. If he just told him, then and he didn't have the memory associated with it, he would have probably been able to better handle it because the actual...
Well, yeah, I'm wondering how could he speak it? That's what I'm interested in. How? So it sounds like the way it's being described is the brother had symbolized what had happened to him in the past and was just not giving that symbolic dimension to his brother.
I don't know what symbolized.
Yeah, that doesn't sound right. But go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. It was pretty. It sounds like just watch it.
Okay. But it sounds
or don't. It's not exactly. Watch a Marvel movie. Watch Loki. But anyway, and also sorry for the total tangent. Back to Tara. Let's pull some cards now. Let's light some candles and pull some cards.
But and everything you're saying it does bring back to. It sounds like the documentary is about how difficult the truth is. the truth, how difficult the truth is to handle, and the ethical responsibility, which is how I felt about my friend. And it's whenever I see this stuff, there's a responsibility going like, well, how much do I, if I see a truth, do I speak it to my friend? Do I say, listen, this is what I think's going on. This is what I think you're wrestling with. Da, da, da. Or to what extent do I go, well, no, I shouldn't do that because you've put all of this onto the 9/11 truther movement because you precisely can't handle
let it do the work.
So let it do the work. And then what I can do is but then is this deceptive where I go, okay, I can use this information to to kind of guide some questions and be a good friend. But is that deceptive? Or, so that's why in psychoanalysis is good because you're contractually engaged. Like you're literally saying to the analyst, you can confront me with my truth gradually over time, et cetera, et cetera. That's going to happen.
Pain for pain.
Yeah, but with a friend, it's a bit different because it's like,
yeah.
But it's all about the truth is too much. The truth is too much. And if it wasn't, we wouldn't repress. That's what repression, disavowal, and foreclosure. 3 mechanisms for avoiding the truth.
Well, let's hit them. Okay. Repression, I know that one.
Yeah, repression, that's the basic one.
Disavowal, I know what it is, but I don't believe in it. I don't want to hear about it.
Yes.
This is a little joke.
Yes. Yeah, but it's kind of like disavowal is I know very well that, nevertheless. So you know the truth, but you also... So with repression, you deny a truth and it comes up in another scene. It comes up in anger at your parents.
I mean, my understanding would be repression, you're truly not even conscious of it, but we might differ here in that, like, you're saying repression is, because that's like a subconscious thing, right? If you're just saying, I don't want to think about that, that's not quite repression, because I feel like people confuse the two.
Yes.
And they think, oh, I repressed it. But it's like, no, you just didn't pay it. You're just not thinking about it.
Yes. Yeah,
but real repression is like, it gets in there.
Yeah. And then the Freudian notion of repression is what... The affect just kind of finds a different outlet. So repression is weirdly always on the surface. It's it always... So that's called the return of the repressed. Yeah, so you're right, it's not something you push down so much as... like, for example, somebody might really hate somebody at work called John, but it turns out their grandfather was called Jonathan. And what they've done is the name, the affect, their hatred of their grandfather has been put onto this other person. They've got no idea why, but there is a connection, and that's repression. It's like, oh, the affect is there, the anger, or you cry over an advert for no reason, cry over something really silly. You're not crying over something, you're crying over something that you've dislocated from.
My grandfather was named Ben Shapiro. Anyway.
Yes. Very good.
I don't even hate Ben Shapiro. What's the other one? What's the turd?
Oh, you don't like the guy who goes to colleges? You don't like him?
I don't like Crowder very much, but maybe I think he's not doing well, so I want to wish him best health-wise, but I don't appreciate his content or his stances on anything or the way he talks or treats people or is in the world or goes about his general demeanor, even the way he dresses and his aesthetic appeal, I think, is sort of hammering home a very sort of antiquated version of masculinity. It's doing more damage than good. So, but my grandfather's name was Steven Crowder, so I can't. I can't say it might be me. Maybe he's really cool. I don't know. No, I don't give crap. I'm not here to talk crap about that type of stuff. I don't think on the podcast about tarot, I want to lay into people about political stuff.
Because there's a little part of you. No, this is not. I'm not going to say this, but there's a part of you that enjoys the pure, the kind of the synchronicity of tarot, right?
Oh yes, the mystical. I
probably sound too reductive.
No, I don't think you do at all. Yeah. I think the whole point is that both can be applied at any given moment. I think that's the beauty of this type of stuff is no one is forcing anybody to take any particular stance when it comes to this kind of thing. If you get something out of it, great. And then you can dissect what you got out of it and why you got something out of it. And that's when I think you start entering into the belief world and sort of the maybe philosophical world, I guess, of like, oh, this is whatever. Now, I happily will, I love all this stuff. I mean, any kind of thing that has a spirituality to it, I'm drawn to it. I think it adds a certain color to life. I believe in it. I think it's beautiful. I can also, weirdly enough, go, probably not.
Yeah.
Especially, it just depends on my mood. Like, I'll be like, if it's a day where I'm exhausted and like, like just so feeling overwhelmed or stressed out or something, I don't want to do any of that. It feels so trite and silly and like not too escapist, too like, oh, I don't need to deal with my problems because I can go, be woo woo in some way. But other times, when we want to have some fun, it's my kind of fun.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a kind of fun that can knock you off your ass.
That's my favorite. That's the only kind of fun I know.
Yeah. But it's like...
He says while he takes a sip of gin.
But those are my favorite things. Like, whenever you go to a musician for entertainment, but then when you're listening to them, they confront you with your own life, or when you hear a comedian and you go to comedy to kind of escape from the difficulties of life, but a good comedian maybe makes you think about your life, but in a kind of way that makes it easier. Tarot is one of those things that can be a fun, entertaining thing, but can kind of like confront you with a truth. And that's that indirect communication where you get like destabilized without kind of expecting it. That's great.
It's wonderful. Yeah, and it's also a great way, I think, to get to know people, and it's a great way to get to know yourself, because you get to go like, I don't know, if you can walk away from any kind of social or fun type of hangout and then go, that felt more enriching than just small talk or bits. I mean, I have a few social circles, and some of them are so funny, just brilliantly funny. And then sometimes it becomes like not a lot of depth to it. And I think certain things like tarot, certain things, anything like that, where you're sort of doing it doesn't have to be that either. It can be icebreak, where you're getting to know people and giving space for more of people's the fullness of their personality. I think that is something that should be embraced. And do I still think it's all a little bit creepy sometimes? Absolutely. Do I think it's a little scary? Sure. But
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know what I used to do when I was 17? And I had this kind of...
Where's this going?
Yeah, well, yeah. So this religious event, and then my found object was, at the time, confessional Christianity, to give me a kind of an understanding of what had happened. But that allowed me to read people and call it prophecy. So I would go out on the streets and would go up to strangers and tell them about themselves.
Isn't that crazy?
And it was kind of crazy what would happen.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And sometimes it was very, like, you really kind of... Because people tell you so much by how they're looking, and you don't even know... I didn't know I was doing it.
Yeah, you can read people. But you're very good at reading people. Yeah, you're very good at reading the tarot cards. I mean, you have a brain. You can pick up on... You're listening to people, and you are a listener when people talk. It's a very good quality about you, and so I think it makes total sense.
So it was
I can be reducted too, see?
Yeah, very good.
The truth is that you are in line with the chakras or
yes,
some shit.
Yes, right. I have the magic. Yes, I hadn't actually thought I had the magic. I would do tarot.
Can you imagine being your age now and doing that?
Well,
you would do it under your...
I think I do.
Right.
Yeah.
But could you really? You could do it? You could walk up to people, even if it's like a...
Well, no, I would want it to be permission based. I thought that was a little bit, you're trying to confront people with things that they haven't agreed to.
Oh man, that was so crazy. Yeah, I remember being a teenager and being like, I got to tell everyone about Jesus. Yeah. I'm going to confront them. And quickly you're like, nobody wants to hear about that. Yeah. Nobody wants to talk to you about Jesus. Nobody wants to talk to anybody about Jesus that is just approaching them.
But they want to hear about their truth. That's the thing. So if you can tell someone their truth, which, by the way, and the truth sets you free, like when you're confronted with your truth, it definitely can be confronting and destabilizing, but in the right way, it makes you feel better. Mm-hmm. It makes you make better decisions in your love life and in your work life. Even Freud talks about it. There's a great throwaway line he has in one of his, I think it's the introduction to psychoanalysis, whatever these lectures he gave, but he just throws out these examples of, talking to somebody, and like there was a woman who, she was about to get married, and she said the wrong name of who she was getting married to. And, Freud just mentioned at the time, says, I kind of thought, oh dear, that's not really going to work out. And, it didn't work out or whatever. But the point is that he's always, he was so good at hearing Freudian slips.
Yep.
It was named after him. That the things but if you're confronted with your Freudian slips, if you're confronted with it, you just make better decisions. You kind of get to know yourself better. You flow with your life better. You can change things, and so it is very useful. It is very
Freud,
useful.
actually, you may not know this, Freud was basing that story off of a scene from the show Friends, in which Ross is having his wedding, and they're at the altar, and he accidentally says, the Rachel, and everyone goes, oh, and causes a big thing. The wedding falls apart. Guess who Ross ends up getting with? Rachel.
Oh, very good. That's where Freud got that from.
Seinfeld, or not Seinfeld, Friends was a pretty Freudian. Not really.
But that's funny that they did that. That shows, by the way, this is used even in popular TV and movies. And I'm trying to think. I saw a movie recently, and it did it where it's very clever, where a movie can have a character talking about something else on a different scene, but it's shot in such a way that you know that they're talking about themselves.
Oh, it's the best, yeah.
You know, so it's very good. Obviously, that was a very, very in-your-face one, like at the wedding. But it shows that we all understand how projection works. We all kind of get the dimension of it.
We just know the words and the people who think of these things. It's all, everyone knows it. Everyone just goes, oh yeah, no, I don't, yeah, mm-hmm. Oops.
You know, that's why people get annoyed. Like if someone has a Freudian slip and says the wrong name instead of their partner's name, somebody else, you kind of get annoyed because the person says, well, that's not what I intended. And in psychoanalysis, it's not what you intend that's important, it's what you say. And so everybody knows that you're betraying a desire. Now, it might not be the desire to be with the person, but but you are betraying a desire.
Yeah.
And the other person knows it. That's why they get annoyed. Because if there was no jouissance within it, then the person would just be like, oh yeah, you made a mistake. But you know, we can tell that there's a message within it.
Oh yeah. Dude, my favorite thing is when I hear any kind of Freudian slip, I just keep my mouth shut.
Mm-hmm.
And I just go,
yes,
right. Yeah. Note it. Don't say anything. They'll get mad at you.
Yes, don't say it.
Or they'll laugh it off, and they won't be. That's equally bad. Yes. They don't usually do these things. They just wait it out. But yeah.
Yeah, I know. I always make it. I always kind of try and assess: is it a Freudian slip that's funny enough? Or is it too close to the truth? If it's not too close to the truth, I'll mention it. And if it is, I'll just let it slide.
It's a balancing act. Really, all this boils down to just fun. We're just having fun. That's all great. Well, I had another thought about but I don't remember no, I don't remember what it was.
Well, you've got any takeaways then? What are our takeaways?
Well, I've had a great time with this episode, Pete. First of all, I had such a great time when you came over. Thank you so much for doing it. My gosh, love you, dude. You're so much fun. It's also just you guys are my favorite people, and I got to see. It was so fun. I was just like, oh, this is so nice. So do it again.
It was very magical, very special.
You probably won't. We won't ever let you read the tarot again not because you're bad at it, but because you're...
it was too much.
Yeah, too much. It was too much truth. Hanging out with Peter Rollins can be too much truth. Who would have thought? It was all very fun. Thank you so much for doing it. And I say, I think if you're going to do this type of thing, I think, first of all, if you're not going to do it, I think that's great. I think there's nothing wrong with it. My goodness. You don't need it. It's fine. I think if you do want to do it, if your interest has been piqued, take it seriously. Have a good time with it. Treat it, don't download an app or something. Like, go for it, because it's a nice way to be able to talk to another human. And it's also goofy. Yeah. It's so goofy.
And you didn't mention the weird, like it was a funny weird thing, which, I think's just kind of, coincidence, but it was funny that you were showing me around the house, and we went into your office, and in your office's bookshelf, and you said, oh, there's your book, The Divine Magician. And then we went from the office into the other room. We did the tarot, and then Grace turns over the magician and says, "This is the first time I've ever had this card." And you were like, "That's weird." And it came up a couple of times, and it came up the next day. So
there's more. We'll just extend a little longer here, because there's more to. I don't want to chalk myself up to somebody who thinks that every coincidence is a synchronicity, and I have my little sort of pithy guidelines for it, typically being that it needs to be two or more at the same time. But prior to you coming over, Grace was nervous, and she was, trying to get to know you via Instagram. And I was like, good luck. I don't know. And then she looked at your Instagram. She's like, it's cool. She's like, he kind of looks like a magician. And then when that popped up, that's why I like grabbed it. I was like, remember when you said the thing kind of looks like a magician? He's got a magician sort of brand, basically. And then, you came over, and then I showed you the one book I have of yours on display, because the others I keep under my bed, under my pillow at night. It was The Divine Magician, and then you got the magician card, and then you left a bunch of stuff out when you left, like a phantom.
That's right. Yeah.
And so there was more than one thing going on, and also you are a magician, so.
Yeah, there you go. Very good.
That's my takeaway.
So what's my takeaway? Yeah, just guess what I was saying, which is the truth sets us free, but our truth is too traumatic. And so we need ways to confront it. And sometimes we do it by putting it onto another scene entirely, talking about someone else's relationships or some other things going on in the world or whatever. And then sometimes it's like the tarot, which is slightly better, where you do put it out to the tarot cards, but then you're listening to them, so you try to kind of reclaim what's being said. And if we can have rituals in our lives that allow us to confront our truth, we'll probably be healthier for it.
How about that?
There you go.
Oh, I do have one more takeaway.
Oh,
the thing that Freud said about cures just help you work and love better or something that.
Yeah.
I think that's a nice cop-out, because that's not what... that doesn't mean they're curing anything. It just means that they're just, sort of boosting along your pathology a little bit. I think that's very fun. But it's also very true, because you can't fix any of this stuff. And on that note, goodbye.
Bye-bye.